And
oh, put it away.
I didn't.
There we go. That's what James will be reviewing. And he's going to be eating some broccoli, rice, bell peppers, and this bulgogi barbecue sauce on it. Because we were given this bulgogi barbecue beef, and it looks like James could manage to strain some sauce off of that too, but I didn't try that hard. So it's a bit of a gravy for his food. And he's going to talk to you about those books now. I'm going to treat some dogs.
Good.
So go ahead.
Yep. So as threatened a couple of days back, I actually finished this book. I was said I'd finish it up yesterday. There I had only 8 pages left, but I only had time to read 1 page. But I just finished reading it up. So I'm out, about 24 hours away. I hope you're not going to hold that against me. Better not, actually. Anyway, there we go. Mammoth. Mammoth. The resurrection of an Ice Age giant. And like they're trying to get DNA and stuff like that. And that can be used to bring back the bring back the mammoths. And I don't think the science is quite good enough now. But I think eventually they'll be able to figure it out. I mean, they say that when the stuff gets frozen, DNA, whatever, gets all shattered. All you got to do, I think, is get computers on the problem and treat it like big, huge, 3-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. Makes sense. But I don't know if that's occurred to some of these scientists. I mean, these guys have got a fair amount of funding from some of these guys, from things like the Discovery Channel or whatever. So they kind of have to make a big production out of it, so it looks good on TV or the internet or whatever people watch nowadays, Netflix. And so they've got a fair amount of funding. I think there are a lot of scientists out there who are getting a huge amount of funding. I'm talking about the regular scientists at universities, and they basically either don't publish. Hey there, birdie. You want some food here? Anyway, I think that was a chickadee there, giving one of its characteristic sounds. But, a lot of the folks at university science, as well as in other so-called disciplines, I call the humanities the anti-disciplines or lack of disciplines. But that's not to say that everyone is in the humanities or in the sciences are doing nothing. I think the vast majority are into maintaining the status quo. So that's the trouble, is that's not zero, that's a negative. Anyway, yeah, so a lot of them are like Susan Powder or someone who gets on a jag about something, and they got to keep on selling books. They keep on rewriting the same book with a few changes thrown in, different titles, so on and so forth. But you've seen it again and again and again. And so it's publish or perish. But the thing is, they keep on publishing the average academic who gets published keeps on publishing the same thing over and over and over again, and getting promoted as a consequence. That's not the way it should be.
Got a little more sauce for you.
Okay.
So how's the mammoths?
Well, it seems to be going. I think people are receptive out there to what I'm saying. I hope some are.
Okay.
I'm sure there are a few that aren't, but I don't have to hear their whining, so that's good.
All right. Well, you have lots of time left.
I figured I did. Anyway. So, yeah, there are various hypotheses as to what killed off the mammoths. This guy does mention, maybe more than I was giving him credit, this is a guy, Richard Stone, maybe. Anyway, then I was giving him credit for, to the, something like a flood hypothesis, not the flood hypothesis. He does deal with that. There's, you know, like he mentions Cuvier, he doesn't, I don't think he mentions that Cuvier thought things were wiped out. Maybe ancient species were wiped out. I think more than one. Yeah, I think he's the guy that should be given credit for coming up with the idea of evolution. Well before Charles Darwin. I think he was more a contemporary of which came first, Lyell or Hutton. I keep forgetting there's such non-entities. But, at least in terms of actual achievement. But I think one of them actually came up with the idea of superposition, but that's not hardly a stroke of genius. If you ask a little kid, you know, here's a cake, a layer cake. Which one was put on after? I don't know how little the kid could be, and you'd pretty well be sure, you know, a smarter one would say, is it an upside down cake? But yeah, we'd be able to figure it out. So when people are going around saying that such and such is a genius for coming up with the law of superposition, the law of superposition in archaeology seemed to have come 100 years after it came in geology. Oh my God. But that person who's given credit for that is called a genius. He actually contributed his brain to science. The nice thing is, I think he died in sometime during World War II. Somehow or another it got lost, you know, it's poetic justice, it got lost in transition. It was being transported or something like that. Should have been transported to Australia. That's it, just... At any rate, you know, it's basically the idea of a flood killing off beasts was, you know, like I don't think it's even considered for the wipeout of species at the end of the Cretaceous, even though it's accepted now. I think by most scientists that well, they see it as a big meteorite. I suspect it's part of a much bigger comet divided into different parts. One of the pieces thumped the Yucatan Peninsula, about half of it thumped the Yucatan Peninsula, the other half thumped into, what is that, the Gulf of Mexico, I think it would be the Caribbean. And, well, you see, something like that landing on the kind of like half on the Gulf of Mexico, presuming it had the same, something like the same shape it has nowadays. This is a big presumption. Would raise tidal wave miles and miles high. Just a regular meteorite landing on an ocean. Oh, I'm not talking about, but something substantial, like smaller than the size of a typical city block, maybe a little bit bigger than an average house, would raise, they're going so fast, even though they're small, raise at point of impact, tidal waves miles high, a tidal wave spreading in every direction. Yeah. Now, I was going to talk about something that I was just leading up to it, kind of glitching as to what it was going to be. This is all preliminary stuff that I've been laying on. Well, I'll just keep talking, and maybe I'll stumble across. Yeah, I think I was talking about I did mention that you know, they've got the dating wrong. Michael Bailey got the dating wrong. He's got the intervals right, but the dating wrong in his floating chronology. Your bog oaks in northern Ireland. And you know, like how he got that was the thing that screwed him up was he was apparently a radiocarbon expert, and he ballparked the figures for these bog oaks using they call it calibration, calibrated readings. If he'd used the raw readings, see, he's got this floating chronology, he's got the fixed chronology, which is fixed into actually living oaks with overlap. It's going back in oaks that were put into buildings and stuff like that, hundreds and hundreds of years before the present. Oaks that are long dead. But then he ran out of material, ran out of civilization, basically. And so he's got the fixed chronology, and then he's ballparked the floating chronology over here. And he didn't realize that if he hadn't ballparked it using calibrated radiocarbon readings, it would have overlapped with his fixed chronology. This is how science doesn't get done. Now, he's done an amazing job of identifying places where, in the chronology, where trees, he claims at least, around the world, not just on his chronology, which apply just to Ireland, around the world where the world's trees have stopped growing. And so the one he identifies, 2350 BC, we take off the radiocarbon calibration mistake, and it gets you down to roughly 1850. Might be a little bit earlier than that, but not much more than 50 years.